When I was 20 years old, the weekends were a source of anxiety, where every one of my friends were all like, "Man, I'm cutting loose." Either they're rolling up a fatty and smoking a doobie with the rest of my friends, or they're getting drunk or waking up with girls or guys that they just met the night before. And I would be sitting there anxious about the trades I'd be missing in the coming week. I would be obsessively thinking about what happens if I watch the charts and I draw out my charts and then I miss the moves. Then I'll have to wait for another week. And I was always constantly worrying about what if, what if, what if. And maybe it is similar to you. Maybe you're thinking the same thing, but it's even worse for you probably because you're learning from me. And I have a lot of things that can get into a trade. I have lots of entry mechanisms, lots of conditions and setups that would yield a limitless opportunity. But that limitless opportunity causes you to feel like, which one's right for me? Which one's right for me? And that, unfortunately, is one of the most expensive things when you're learning from me, because I can't give that to you. That's something that you're going to have to discover on your own. And a lot of it's really dictated by your personal life. You may have school, you may have a job, you may have a family life that says you don't have much time, but you have this small little window of time in the day, or this day of the week even, where you have to do whatever you're going to do in trading that day and only then. Now, I don't have an answer for something so specific as that because, let's just face it, there's enough to go around in terms of opportunities, but when you make your universe so small and so finite that you can't really breathe as a trader, unfortunately, you're going to have to make some adjustments and changes to your personal life and make yourself more. Unfortunately, you're going to have to make some adjustments and changes to your personal life and make yourself more accessible. And if that's not possible, then you're going to have to defer trading at a later time when you can do so. That doesn't mean you can't learn by looking at hindsight. But in my 20s, when I first started doing this, I was very anxious that I was always going to miss the next moves. So it kind of like was the catalyst for me to sit down and try to figure out, what it is that I have to concern myself with in advance. So that way I wouldn't have to be obsessively thinking about the fear of missing a move. But little did I know, I didn't even understand what constituted a setup that would realistically form, because I was at the delivery of whatever indicator I was using at the time. So I had to yield myself to, I have to wait until that indicator does this. And because I was working, I was driving a truck, I could only see the numbers on a quote track. That wasn't giving me the indicators. That wasn't telling me if it was overbought or oversold. It didn't tell me if there was a type 1 divergence, just a classic divergence where the indicator fails to make a lower low when price makes a lower low, or makes a higher high in price but fails to make a higher high in the indicator. That's a traditional, typical type 1 divergence. And I started off trading that. That was like my thing on an hourly chart, the 50-day moving average. That was all I did. And when the markets are going up predominantly, and you're taking oversold conditions like that, it's pretty much a no-brainer. And that was my initial luck in the marketplace, because I was only doing one thing. I was a one-trick pony, scared to go short, didn't even know what that meant. But in a truck, like you in university, or you working a job, or you having constraints that your family says you can't do it as much as you really want to because you have responsibilities as a father, as a mother, or whatever. So you can't be in front of the charts when that indicator indicates that there's something for you to do. And that was problematic for me. I wrestled with it. I tried to come up with all different kinds of ways to work around that. And every time I did it with real money, I lost. Every single time I tried to make little subtle changes and tweak it here and tweak it there, trying to crack the code of absentee trader, that type of approach. And it didn't work out well. So the Lord basically said, listen, you got to start studying what has happened at very specific times. Pay attention there. Look there. So when I started looking at charts like that, I stopped looking for how many times a divergence formed. And you've probably done that in the past before you come to me, or maybe it's the same thing with my information. You look at old data, because I encourage you to back test. I encourage you to collect opportunities where it's happened in the past. And you get excited, like, wow, man, look how many times it happens. And you start collecting it and you start thinking to yourself, I've seen it work like 18 times out of the last 20. So even if I mess it up, see if I do it, half-assed, and I go in, I try to do it just a little bit less than what ICT would approve of if he was sitting next to me, I still probably have a good chance of making a grand at least a week with my funded account, or at least pass my funded account, or get a withdrawal from my live account. And you kind of like sweet talk yourself into it. And I did all that stuff too, folks. I did all those things. But you have to look at how often you have the opportunity to be in front of charts. That has to be completely worked out in advance. Otherwise, it's going to be a source of stress. If you're in a relationship and they're not on board with what you're doing, they don't care that you really believe that you're going to make money because they didn't see you do it yet. They haven't seen you do it week after week, month after month, year after year, and replace your job with it. So they're not going to have the same affinity for it that you do, or that you're trying to muster. You're trying to encourage yourself to stay focused, to be diligent, do what ICT says, focus, cut everything out. That's hard with your family. That's very, very hard, and I paid a price of doing that. So one of the things that I felt led by the Lord to do is stop looking for the frequency of indicators. And I started looking for the frequency of price delivery. When did the market generally create these repeating price runs? And when my mind shifted from indicator-based revelations in price to that of what tends to happen systematically, what tends to happen on a almost time-based schedule. Not every day, not every instance at that specific time or that day of the week or that month, but by far and large, it usually happens. And in and of itself, that is a huge advantage. And that's what got me excited, where I would have the energy to work 13 hours with drive time back and forth and stay up into the wee hours of the morning on work days and go to work with 2.5, 3 hours of sleep, driving, cranked out on Dr. Pepper, Mountain Dew. Like they were my energy drinks. Okay. And I would just literally just plow through my route as fast as I could get done. And it never got done any sooner. But I was so excited to go home and see what the market did. Now, sure, I watched it on my Quotrek, which was a little handheld device, kind of like an old transistor radio. And for those who don't know what that is, you can Google it and see it. I had that duct taped on the windshield of my truck. And I'm delivering